You're going to go through life thinking that girls don't like you because you're a nerd. And I want you to know from the bottom of my heart, that won't be true. It'll be because you're an asshole. And you associate with Lou Diamond.
Want to learn from those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level? Best-selling author of Master the Art of Connecting and professional speaker Lou Diamond is here to connect you to some of the most inspiring and amazing people on the planet. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today on Thrive Loud, we have a visionary business leader, speaker, and creator of the Soul System, a framework that aligns value-creating employee action with broader corporate strategy through shared understanding and shared purpose. He is the author of Building Corporate Soul, Powering Culture and Success with the Soul System, a founding partner of Spark 44, and he has a driving vision to make soulless companies a thing of the past. Thrive Loud listeners, coming to us from Germany, Ralf Specht. Ralf, how are you today?
Lou, I'm fine. Absolutely thrilled to be on the show. Glad to be with you.
I love what you're talking about because there could not be a more timely discussion about what's happening in the corporate world. I was about to say corporate America, but corporate globally, and the importance of establishing a really strong culture and understanding kind of a soul and spirit within an organization. What I want to do is I kind of want to rewind the clock a little bit, not too far. I want to go back and understand how this message formulated, how the soul system kind of came to be and why it was important to you.
All right. So, as you quite rightly mentioned, I was a co-founder of a startup company called Spark 44. Great startup, great company. We grew in just a few years to, at the end when I left as CEO, I think we were like 1,200 people, 19 offices worldwide, 100 plus million revenue. So a real success story. And when I left, which was a bit of a surprise to everyone when it happened, and I was the last of the co-founders that left, I received a flood of emails and WhatsApps and what have you that were basically expressing their feelings about my departure. And it wasn't what you would expect, the sad to see you go, that type of stuff. It was much, much deeper. It was a flood of emails and messages that looked into what had been achieved and what people were a bit scared of what would come next, as they felt that was a culture, a quality of a culture that they hadn't experienced in their careers before. It was quite something to digest for me. And after a few weeks, I thought, well, this is actually too important to just stay on my iPhone, but actually there's a message here. And I thought when people looked at the company from outside and they looked at the stats that I just mentioned and thought that's the legacy, I always felt, well, that's not the legacy. I think the legacy is the culture that we had built, and that actually was testament of all those messages that I received.
So it's interesting, right? This is a common thing that happens, like the benefit of joining a startup organization that has some unique culture, which is a little more manageable because it's smaller in nature, and the people within the company are kind of directly connected to the founders who have helped to build whatever that culture is. Yet in larger organizations, obviously from many years of being there and a larger entity, it's tougher to feel the sense of culture. So this is a great point because we've always say this, startup companies have that soul. I'm going to ask one initial question from your experiences. Why do you think larger corporate companies don't feel like they normally have this soul?
I think you're right and you're wrong at the same time. So
I love this. Keep going.
absolutely. So I think you're right in the sense of startup companies have a significant advantage because the founders are there. Usually it's a small crowd at the beginning, it grows, but still there's always a direct connection, and the founder is basically the role model of what's happening in the company. You see him or her every day or a few times, and you see how the behaviors are actually playing out. And obviously, the larger the company, the more difficult it is. The founder might no longer be there. It might be the whatever fifth generation, or it might be a public company and there's management in place. Now, that's where I said you're right. I think you're wrong in terms of it doesn't happen in large companies. There was a special moment earlier this year, I think sometime in summer, when Alex Gorski, the CEO and chairman of J&J, also stepped down. And when you followed his LinkedIn departure, if you like, when I read the comments, I felt pretty much like 2 years ago when I received all those messages, because there was a similar tone to it. There was a similar underlying thank you to it. And I think when he looked back into his early J&J days, he said, well, actually, when I walked into the office in, I think it was 1989, when he got interviewed for his first job at Janssen at the time, he felt exactly what purpose the company was all about. So, and that's, I think, a nice handover to the concept of the soul system, which is a 3-level framework, which starts with purpose. But I am a bit done with the purpose discussion, because I feel purpose discussion has gone to a space where everybody thinks purpose is the thing. To me, purpose is just a means to an end. It's just something that you need to get somewhere else. And in my book and in the framework, I call purpose the shared purpose. And shared is actually important in 2 areas. One, for the purpose to be shared amongst the leadership team so that everybody is fully behind it. But then also it's shared within the entire company, and it impacts everything the company does. And that is so critical. That's the starting point of everything.
So I have to jump in here. This is unbelievable, as you mentioned this example. I was using it in that many companies have this problem, and I've actually had the good fortune of doing a lot of work with Johnson & Johnson. And I'm going to read to you their credo. I'm going to explain this to you. We believe our first responsibility is to the patients, doctors, and nurses, to mothers and fathers, and all others who use our products and services. In meeting their needs, everything we do must be of high quality. We must constantly strive to provide value, reduce our costs, and maintain reasonable prices. Customers' orders must be serviced promptly and accurately. Our business partners must have an opportunity to make a fair profit. It's a health message first, business message second. I've had the good fortune of connecting with many people in that organization. They live and breathe this credo each and every day. You could see it ooze from them. And that's a great example. This is a large organization, 130 years old, that's able to do it. And I'm so glad you gave that as an example to somebody who left and those people are within that. Tell me how, when you step into organizations to help them kind of develop that soul system, what's the assessment maybe even that you do to say, this is a company that already has this and has something like Johnson & Johnson does, or it doesn't, and this is how I'm going to be able to help. I'd love to learn how you assess who you can work with.
As I mentioned, the soul system has got 3 levels, and shared purpose is the centerpiece, right? And the next level is what I call the shared understanding. So you see there's a pattern here: shared, comes always, it's always happening. And shared understanding looks at the key elements of corporate strategy, like what's the vision of the company, what's the mission, what are the values. But there's a 4th one, which very often companies are not explicit about or are not clear about. And the 4th one is what I call spirit. And for me, spirit is the intended culture. What's the spirit that we would like to see in this place? And whenever you've been working with various companies in your life, after a certain while, you get a sense of, you have a radar, kind of when you walk into that building, when you are being greeted, when you're directed to the conference room or wherever you go, and how people interact with each other, you get a sense of kind of what's happening there, how the company is ticking. And that leads to the third element of the soul system, which are the shared behaviors. And actually, the shared behaviors are the most critical thing, because you can write up so much great stuff day in and day out, and you got great purpose statements, and you got a great vision, and you got a great mission. But when you ask people in the company, what's the purpose, what's the vision, what's the mission, very often they don't have a clue.
Yeah.
There's this study from EY, which is called the Business Case for Purpose, and they've interviewed hundreds of leaders, and 80%, 80+% actually believe that. They say an organizational shared purpose will have high employee satisfaction, and our business transformation efforts will have greater success, and that's always in the 80+% areas. At the same time, only 50% say our organization's strategy is reflective of our sense of purpose. So the leaders all basically think this is the right thing to do, but actually only half of them does it.
Mm.
And and it gets worse because they say, well, our staff don't have a clear understanding of organizational purpose and commitment to core values and beliefs. And that's what they say. 38% only believe they have that, which basically says 62 don't. And that is so critical. And the behaviors actually make the culture. There is no culture without behaviors. Culture is what happens. Culture is not what you write in kind of a fancy document, right?
When you led your organization with your co-founders, and you get right before, when you started the whole idea, did you have that sense of purpose and understanding and vision of your particular company when you began?
Yes, we did. I think I always remember one episode of the very early days, like when this wasn't public yet. So when it was just we're going to do this, and it was signed off so that we could do it. The five of us sat down in a conference room in London from a befriended agency who gave us a room for a day, because obviously we didn't have anything. We wanted to save money everywhere, so we asked for lots of favors, and many friends gave us lots of favors. And we sat in that room and talked about culture. And I still remember to that day. I mean, we had like 5 flip charts in the room, and everybody was like, "Okay, now let's write it down." And it was a tough discussion. And it was tough because there was no discussion, because everybody had a hard time to basically describe what they wanted to achieve. And then we just flipped the question and said, what kind of a culture do we no longer want to have, or what don't we want to have? And that made it very easy, because everybody from their experience, and I think we were all in our mid-40s to mid-50s, everybody had obviously a ton of experiences of stuff that they had experienced in their whatever 20s and 30s and 40s that they didn't want to see again. And so we listed all of that, put it into, I don't know, 5 or 6 buckets, and then basically said, okay, if we don't want to have that happening in our company, what do we have to do? And that's how we basically define the organizational principles, the structure, and some key elements of how we wanted to go about those. And when you do that, again, it's a theoretical exercise. And when reality hits you, you look at some of the things and think, well, not so sure whether that was really right. So you have to amend it slightly, or you think, well, we missed that part, so we got to look at this and find a way to address it. For us, it was always critical to have an inclusive culture. As we were starting as a global company in 4 locations at the same time, so it was Los Angeles, Frankfurt, London, and Shanghai. So we had to deal with cultural differences from day one. And we always felt that the diversity in terms of bringing in people from different areas of the earth, dealing with the same problem, actually created better results and better work and a better culture. And I remember when in the office, in the beginning, when I ran one of the office, I think we were like 50 people or so from 28 countries. So there was really diversity baked into the whole concept.
I really like actually the title of your book, Building Corporate Soul, for a different reason than you're probably going to think. Most people would think it's the last word about soul. Mine actually has to do with the word building. There's a lot of organizations that create or establish the beginning of that corporate soul and culture that's important for the organization. It's the ongoing building of it and the maintenance of it that's actually harder than actually coming up with the ideas. How do you help the organizations, and even if it's mentioned in the book, but also the work that you do, how do you help these organizations set it up, but then instill it and maintain it on an ongoing basis, that ongoing maintenance of keeping the corporate soul at the heart and center of an organization?
Yeah, I think, as you quite rightly mentioned, building is critical. Rome wasn't built in a day, and a great corporate culture wasn't built in a day, but it can be destroyed in a day, right? I mean, I think last week, the better.com example is, it's difficult to find the right words for it. And as I was commenting on it the past few days, I looked into I'm not sure whether it was comparably or indeed about the statements of employees on culture. And it's very, very interesting. And I wish they would have been on my radar before, because it would have been probably even more interesting to see what it was like 2 weeks ago or so. Because on the one hand, it seems there is a very good corporate culture in this place. A lot of people stating lots of good things about what's happening in that place. And then, and I'm not sure because as I said, I haven't seen it, looked at it up for 2 weeks before. So there's a big debate about the quality of leadership and what they're doing. So coming back to your question, in terms of building corporate soul, what do you do? The book looks at 2 examples in a very explicit way of companies that were actually well reputed for their corporate soul, for their corporate culture, and had lost it. One is Hilton Hotels, and one is Lego, right? And pretty much at the same time, in the mid 2005-06 or so, they were basically at the bottom. And both companies looked into how to bring it up again. And completely different industries, of course, but both did the same thing. They went back in history, looked at what the purpose of the company was when it was founded. The Hilton one, Conrad Hilton, I think famously said, "We're great people serving great people." And Lego, which always had this purpose to support the education of children and the creativity of children and people, and both had lost it completely. And when new management came in, that's what they did. They looked into what it was and started to think about what does that mean in today's world, and how do we have to not only develop a different set of products and work on our brand and all the rest of it, but what element in our human capital story is critical to get that right. For Lego, for instance, is an interesting element. They figured out that a lot of the designers they had in place who created the Lego product in the mid 2000s were actually not fans of Lego. So they changed their recruiting policy completely, and now you have only Lego fans from the get-go. And guess what happened? A completely new set of creativity on the product development. On Hilton's side, they said, well, if our credo is something around great people serving great people, why aren't we taking care of our great people and serving them well? So they did a huge program on making sure that their employees also felt like they were treated as guests, like they changed the lounge areas and offered like a loyalty program. You can book hotels, you get there even in high seasons and all of that. Now, to your question about what do you have to do, you have to keep on doing it. You have to build. It's building. It's not build your corporate soul and you got it. It's a continuous effort. It never stops. And I think you can see it, especially in times of crisis, which, turning back to the better.com example, the absolute antidote to that example, I think, is what happened last year at Airbnb. I mean, better.com, 900 people, 9%. Airbnb, 15 months ago, 1,900 people, so more than twice as many, 25%. And the letter from Brian Chesky, that all staff email that went out, which is in the book because I think it's for leadership skills is a one of a kind example. That email not only addressed the ones that had to go, but also and made them proud in a way. While it's been tough to share the message, he basically gave them every applause that he could ever give to anyone, and at the same time made clear to the ones who stayed what was about to happen and why it was important to actually value those that are leaving. And you look at better.com, and it's been traumatic for the 900 people on the call, but it's probably been traumatic for the 8,000 who are still in the company, because guess what? What will happen next? I've got no clue.
Yeah.
The next invitation to a Zoom call, ooh.
Well, and by the way, for the listeners who didn't know, the Better.com CEO at the time, early December, right before the holidays, which was also a time like we wanted to let go 900 people via Zoom in an impersonal message type of thing, which was something that is new. I mean, there's been this whole joke, well, there's organizations that are hiring people via Zoom. You know, should we get used to the world, the fact that these type of things can happen? Regardless of what it is, by the way, the CEO did send out an apology letter. I always think that those are always the toughest things to ever read after a bad action. It's not going to clean it up. I do find it very interesting, by the way, that in your book, the two examples that you wrote, I think of the word building in both instances. I think of hotel buildings when I think of Hilton, and I think of building things with Lego. So well appropriate to those examples that you've highlighted in the book. Who knew you'd be so, must be somebody that's been in the creative side and helping to get people to bring out their imaginations. To you personally, this project, you know, a lot of times when you capture the stuff that you're doing each and every day, and you're coming up with that methodology and sharing it, you learn something new, you find something new about yourself, or even a new direction or new message is clarified with this. The process of putting this together for you, Ralf, surprising, rewarding, or as expected when you put together this message?
Comes in three phases, I have to say. Obviously, phase one was coming up with the idea and creating the logic. Rewarding, actually. I had a few friends who helped me and read chapters and gave early feedback. And when you write a book, I mean, you write a book about a topic that is on your mind and in your heart, and but you don't know whether that touches anybody else. And so it was important to gain early feedback to see whether I was on a good track or whether that was something weird. And that was very positive. Phase two actually was working with Fast Company as the publishing house. Mm-hmm. We're going to publish the book next February. And they were actually, as their name suggests, fast. It took them, I think, 4 days to come back and say we want to do this, which I was very surprised about. And then phase 3 actually is right now is spreading the word, and that's very rewarding too, because you meet a lot of great people like yourself and many others that actually support the idea of better working, better workplaces, better work cultures. And one of my friends, Neil, who helped in checking the chapters as I was writing them, I said to him one day, I said, okay, now we've done the soul system, and it's very clear now. The one thing I haven't done is I got to define my purpose and my vision. And my
right.
mission.
Yeah.
Do that. And so he was my sparring partner. We were bouncing back and forth. And so for me, the purpose that I'm about in this context is to transform the performance and value of organizations, right? And the vision is, as you mentioned, making soulless companies a thing of the past. And the mission, I think, speaks straight to the model, because the mission is to make the leadership behaviors which build soul synonymous with the behaviors that build success. Because I believe there is no such thing as you either have a great company culture or you have a successful business. Bullshit. You have a successful business with a successful and great culture. I mean, O.C. Tanner released that culture index once a year, and they found out that and they call companies with soul thriving cultures, right? Thrive loud. There you go. And they say, well, thriving cultures have 13 times more, or are 13 times more likely to have highly engaged employees, and have an 8 times higher incidence of great work, and a double likelihood to have increased revenues. Boom. And at the same time, employees in thriving cultures are experiencing 3 times less burnout situations, and the companies are 3 times less likely to face layoffs. There you go.
There you go. Right up there. Ralf, I love asking guests on the program this question. I'm so curious to know where this goes. You've been thriving throughout your career. You've had a successful startup that was acquired. You've been sharing this message. You're speaking about it, which means on most days you are thriving. But we all have those days when we're not quite kicking on all cylinders and things aren't working the way we'd like to. Ralf Specht, when you're not thriving, what practice do you seek, or which individual do you seek out to get yourself back on the thriving track?
Well, I think we all have these situations where this is not the blue sky day and things are not going down the way that you expect. And I think it's very important for everyone to have people to be able to connect with, friends, real friends, not just people that pretend to be friends, and that just are there for a great conversation. And those great conversations usually get you back on track. And because in talking about it, similar to in writing about it, your mind gets you on a journey, and that journey gets probably into a different direction than where you started from. And I think that's the most critical piece to get back to a thriving day or a thriving week or a thriving month.
Like it. Ralf, let's do the admin part of the show. Share with the listeners all the places people can find you, the website, the book, all that information. We'll put it in the show notes, but it always gets more engagement to our listeners when they hear it from you.
Right. So obviously, Building Corporate Soul will be published in February. So it will be available at all bookstores and online shops that sell great books. And if you want to have a pre-read chapter, you can sign up to the newsletter on my website, which is buildingcorporatesoul.com. So pretty straightforward. You can follow me on LinkedIn. That's just Ralf Specht, which is Specht. And on Twitter, the handle is also Ralf Specht. So it's a pretty straightforward thing. And when listeners have an idea or question, I'm always interested in feedback. And if they have an example that they want to share, or the company that does it well, I'm here for writing it up and putting it into my next newsletter.
Love it. You ready to go down Fun Street with me, Ralph? I think you can handle this.
Let's see.
You shared with me. Now, can you share with the listeners what is your all-time favorite movie?
It's actually Gandhi with Sir Ben Kingsley, which I think was the early 80s or so.
Yeah,
when
it won Best Picture, 82. I looked it up. I was checking it out.
Yeah.
Why does that movie connect so much with you?
Because I think what Sir Ben Kingsley did in this movie and in portraying the entire story of Mahatma Gandhi and the way he basically had a go on what his belief was and was not disturbed by anything that happened left or right, and stood up for it and fought for it and got it through was, I think, an amazing, legacy, actually. And I mean, sometimes what goes around comes around, because since that movie, I've been a very big fan of some Ben Kingsley. I've seen many movies with him and liked them a lot. And in 2013, when we at Spark 44 produced our global Effie Award-winning campaign, "Good to Be Bad," so Ben Kingsley was part of the three actors with Mark Strong and Tom Hiddleston to actually work in the advertising. And guess what? I got a DVD with his autograph now.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And Ben Kingsley, by the way, is spectacular. He also, I have to say, has incredible range. I was looking the other day at his IMDb, and I'm looking at the roles that he played. Even in one of the Iron Man movies, he was like some crazy, spiritual person or whatever it was. I'm like, oh my God, he's done everything. So he also seems to be a little bit ageless. Maybe it's because he played an older role when he was Gandhi, and you never know exactly how to look at him, but he's got an impressive career. That's very cool. Signed DVD. Very cool. All right, Ralph, we're going to go down Fun Street here, which we call the speed round. And this is how this goes. I'm going to ask you something. I want the first thing that comes to your mind. Most of these things lift you up, make you feel good, motivate you. Basically, they make you thrive. And don't worry, there's no wrong answers because they're all your answers. So, all right, ready to roll?
Here we go.
Of late, a song that you love to listen to, or maybe one that pumps you up.
Before any of the podcasts that I'm doing these days, I'm always listening to a 1976 song, which is Jerry Rafferty's Baker Street.
Oh, good tune. I like that. All right. A favorite food that's not a dessert?
Well, I'm actually a passionate cook, so I really like to do that in my leisure time. And the great mushroom strudel that we like a lot.
So now I'll double click on this. What's your favorite food to prepare? Is that also the favorite thing to prepare? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Do you have a favorite dessert?
Well, ice cream is always a good thing to get onto.
Do you have a flavor that you like of the ice creams, Ralph?
Pretty simple, straightforward. Vanilla. Vanilla ice cream is just perfect.
Yeah.
You can define the quality of the ice maker basically by the vanilla.
Based on vanilla. Just to let you know, when years and years ago, when Baskin Robbins came out here in the States with 31 flavors, my father had to drive like several miles to go to whatever it was, and when he got there, he gets vanilla with all the other flavors. We still make fun of him for that day. An activity you wish you did more of?
Playing tennis.
An activity you wish you did less of?
Writing emails.
If I could snap my fingers, Ralph, and you could be anywhere in the world, where are you?
I will be with my son in Ely in the UK.
Spectacular. Ralf Specht, thank you so much for coming on Thrive Loud today. Took me to the last time to get his name fully right. The Building Corporate Soul, Powering Culture and Success with the Soul System. Truly an honor to have you on the program. Keep doing what you're doing. This is great stuff. Thank you for coming on Thrive Loud.
Thank you very much for having me.
And to all the listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook at Thrive Loud. And check us out on the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.